Karen blocked the fire lane for a parade. Real Firetruck crushed her SUV. I've seen cars towed, I've seen cars keyed, and I've even seen a guy forget he left his parking brake off and watch his Civic roll into a pond. But I've never, not once in my life, seen a fire truck flatten a luxury SUV like it was a soda can. And I've never seen a crowd cheer while it happened. But I did that day, because if anyone deserved to watch her status symbol crumble under 30,000 pounds of chrome-coated karma, it was Karen. Let me back up. My name's Jaime Reyes, 37, divorced dad, 2 kids, and a paralegal at a family law firm just outside Fort Worth. Last year, I bought a house in a quiet little neighborhood called Willow Heights. I thought I'd found paradise, decent schools, tree-lined sidewalks, families waving from porches. My daughter learned to ride her bike on our cul-de-sac. My son, Miguel, made his first real friends on our block. For a guy coming off a rough custody battle and a 2-bedroom rental with black mold in the ceiling, it felt like heaven. Then Karen happened. Her real name was Catherine Ann Wexler, but she insisted everyone call her Madam Wexler, said it was more respectful of her role. What role? Chairwoman of the Willow Heights Community Harmony Council, which wasn't a real HOA, just something she made up after handing herself a printed badge, a blue sash, and a Facebook group called Wexler Watch Keeping Willow Wholesome. From the moment I moved in, she had her eyes on me. I was the divorced renter I wasn't renting, the noise risk I played one acoustic guitar, and apparently a low visibility threat to neighborhood values, whatever that meant. But I kept my head down. For months. I smiled politely when she waved, ignored the passive-aggressive notes about my grass height, and even donated to her family parade fund out of guilt. That last one, big mistake. The Willow Heights Family Heritage Parade was Karen's Super Bowl. She planned it for months, printed flyers, booked vendors, painted banners that said, "Tradition lives here." She even got a local marching band to play under a rented balloon arch. But the one thing she didn't do, coordinate with the fire department. See, our street has a designated emergency fire lane painted red, labeled "No Parking Anytime," clearly stenciled in 4-foot lettering. It runs down the main artery of the subdivision, right past the park, the townhome loop, and down to the cul-de-sac where my house sits. It's the only path big enough for rescue vehicles to cut through in a crisis. We all knew that. Except Karen, or rather, Karen didn't care. It started the morning of the parade. I was helping Miguel set up folding chairs out front when I noticed her backing her 2023 Lexus GX into the middle of the red lane. Engine off, hazards on, SUV perfectly blocking the entire emergency corridor. "Excuse me," I called, walking over. "You can't park there. That's the fire lane." She smiled, the tight, lipless kind that makes your stomach twist. "I'm parade command today," she said. "We're redirecting for community access." "Karen, that's illegal." "It's temporary," she snapped. "And frankly, the kids marching past your little lawn will be much more inspired by a dignified Grand Marshal vehicle than by your dusty Chevy." I blinked. That dusty Chevy was how I drove my kids to school. I looked around. People were watching, neighbors I knew, folks I waved at daily, and not one of them spoke up. She had them scared, maybe not of her exactly, but of the drama she'd bring down on anyone who crossed her. But I wasn't afraid anymore. "Move it," I said, louder this time. "Now. That's a fire access lane." She pulled out her phone. "Threatening me will be documented." "I'm not threatening," I said. "I'm informing." She smirked, started live streaming, and said parade footage. Day 1. Already dealing with aggressive energy. And with that, she turned her back on me and walked away. 10 minutes later, the parade started. Kids in paper hats marched by with drums. Parents clapped. Karen held a giant baton and strutted like she was leading a 4th of July rally on Pennsylvania Avenue. And then right in the middle of it all came a scream. Not from a kid, not from a parent, from Mrs. Harrington. 3 doors down, her husband, 74, retired firefighter, had collapsed on the sidewalk. Heart issue. He'd had stents placed last summer. He wasn't breathing. A dozen people shouted at once. "Call 911. Get the AED. Is he choking? He's turning blue. Someone grabbed the defibrillator from the clubhouse. Another neighbor dialed emergency services. The fire truck, full size, red and rumbling, arrived in 3 minutes flat, but they couldn't get through because Karen's SUV blocked the lane like a monument to stupidity. The sirens wailed, then fell quiet. Then, slowly, they advanced. It was like something out of a movie. The fire truck inched forward. The driver honked. Karen ran over, waving her phone, screaming something about active parade jurisdiction and pre-cleared permits. One firefighter stepped out and shouted, "Move your vehicle or we're pushing through." She kept filming, said, "This is public intimidation. You can't touch my property." That was it. The truck growled and moved straight through her Lexus, crushed the bumper, scraped down the driver's side, cracked both rear windows, and kept going. People gasped, then clapped. Some even cheered. And when they reached Mr. Harrington, they saved his life. Karen stood there in stunned silence, mouth open, phone still recording. Her SUV looked like a crumpled beer can at a tailgate, and not one person helped her. Not one. That night, I got a knock at my door. It was Officer Jensen. He asked if I'd be willing to provide a statement about Karen's vehicle placement, said they were building a negligence case and possible obstruction charge. I nodded, then handed him the full 12-minute clip from my home security cam audio and all. He smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Reyes. You're not the first. This wasn't just about a fire lane. This was about entitlement, abuse, and a fake title finally collapsing under real consequences." And the best part, Karen's downfall was only just getting started. The morning after the fire truck incident, the neighborhood felt different, like the air had been reset, like someone finally opened a window on months' worth of stale fear, and Karen disappeared. No Facebook posts, no flyers, no Wexler Watch emails, just radio silence. Her crumpled Lexus sat in her driveway like a statue of ego and consequence. Windshield cracked, side mirror dangling, door panels peeled like a sardine can. No one came to fix it. No one dared touch it. Because now we all knew. The law didn't back her. She wasn't an authority figure. She was just a loud woman with a clipboard and a God complex, and now she was being investigated for obstruction of emergency response. And that was just the start. 2 days later, I got a call from Officer Jensen again. "Mr. Reyes," he said, "I'd like to drop by and ask a few more questions." He came by that evening, brought a county code enforcement officer with him, guy named Troy, older, with sunburned arms and an easy drawl. They asked about Karen's activities, her printed flyers, her so-called council meetings, whether I'd ever paid dues or received threats of citations. "Yeah," I said. "She threatened to fine me $250 last spring because my trash bins were visible from the sidewalk." "Did she provide any documentation?" "Yeah," I said, walking to the drawer. "This." I handed over a flyer with her fake letterhead, Willow Heights Community Harmony Council, Neighborhood Code Violation Report. They both studied it. Troy laughed and then stopped. "She signed this." "Yep." Jensen looked up. "Mr. Reyes, this is an arrestable offense. She used a government-seeming document to solicit fines without authority. That's municipal fraud." I blinked. "You're saying she committed a crime?" He said, "Several, actually." Then Troy added, "And that's just the paperwork. We've had 2 families report that she made them pay a noise security fee just to have birthday parties on their own lawn." My jaw dropped. She shook down birthday parties, yup, and claimed she had fire marshal backup. Said all music over 70 decibels needed pre-approval. I laughed. I couldn't help it, but inside I was burning, because this woman had made us feel small, unworthy, out of place, powerless. And now it was her turn to feel the weight of truth. Word got out. More neighbors came forward. Angela, who lived on Maple Circle, said Karen told her a shade cloth on her patio violated visual harmony codes. Greg, a retired teacher, said Karen showed up at his front door holding a noise meter and claimed his garden wind chimes were psychologically disruptive. A family with twin toddlers admitted they'd paid $100 for a nuisance waiver after Karen warned them that their toys were unregistered play structures. Every story was more absurd than the last, but they weren't funny anymore. They were part of a pattern, and they painted a clear picture. Karen had weaponized bureaucracy. She wasn't enforcing real rules. She was inventing them, and she was doing it under the guise of community care. That made people afraid to push back, afraid they'd get cited, shamed, or dragged into her Facebook witch trials. But now that she'd been exposed, the dominoes started falling. Victor, a local attorney and one of the few people Karen hadn't dared to approach, stepped up to help us file a civil suit, class action style. More than 30 households signed on. Claims included fraudulent misrepresentation, harassment, emotional distress, obstruction of public service, unauthorized collection of fees under false pretenses. We filed it at the county courthouse under the name Willow Heights Residence Free. Wexler. And when the court date was set, we printed our own flyers, legal ones, with real stamps, real names, and zero fonts that screamed cult newsletter. Meanwhile, Karen tried to bounce back. She posted a 9-minute video from inside her SUV saying she was the victim of a coordinated takedown by urban infiltrators. She claimed the Firetruck had acted out of deep state aggression and accused the EMT who saved Mr. Harrington of being politically compromised. The video went viral, but not in the way she hoped. A local TikToker remixed it into a parody called Madam Firelane, complete with siren sound effects and dramatic zoom-ins on her pouting lips. It hit 500,000 views by the weekend. Karen took it down, but the internet doesn't forget. 2 weeks later, we showed up to court. Ties, documents, composure. Karen showed up wearing a blazer 2 sizes too small and a clipboard full of color-coded folders. She represented herself, tried to talk over the judge, tried to submit her own civic charter, tried to explain how she was elected spiritually by the neighborhood's subconscious need for order. The judge wasn't impressed. When he handed down the ruling, his voice was as flat as the gavel he slammed. You are hereby ordered to cease all claims of authority within the Willow Heights community, to pay restitution to the plaintiffs totaling $62,500, and to publicly retract all fraudulent citations and documents within 14 business days. Karen opened her mouth. He cut her off. If you interrupt this court again, I will hold you in contempt. She sat down. Hard. That night, someone left flowers on my doorstep. No note. Just a card that said, thanks for standing up when we were too scared to. Karen moved out 2 months later, packed a U-Haul, drove away, didn't wave, didn't say goodbye. Her house sat empty for a while. We eventually turned it into a local daycare. Called it Little Lanterns. Funny name. Maybe. But after a year in the dark, we figured it was time for a little light. They say power reveals who someone is. But I think fake power reveals something uglier, what someone wants to be, but doesn't have the courage or character to earn. And that was Karen through and through. Because even after the lawsuit, even after the Firetruck, even after the whole internet turned her into a meme, she still tried to hold court. 2 weeks after the judgment, she emailed the entire neighborhood to whom it may concern. This has been a dark chapter, fueled by betrayal, groupthink, and a fundamental misunderstanding of leadership. I have always acted in the interest of community order. While the court may not have recognized my contributions, history will. Yours in vision. K. Aya. Wexler, Willow Heights Civic Steward Emerita. She CC'd the mayor's office. I kid you not, but that wasn't the worst of it. The worst was the flyer she tried to sneak onto our doors again. Only this time, she wasn't warning us about lawn flamingos or unauthorized chalk art. This time, she was offering to consult. Need guidance on how to keep your block in harmony? I'm now available for private neighborhood consulting. Topics include behavior-based boundary enforcement, Passive compliance techniques. Community patriotism realignment. 150-hour doctor. Venmo accepted. And at the bottom is featured on TikTok and Channel 7. She really tried to spin a fire truck crashing through her SUV into a branding opportunity. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just delusional. She was dangerous in the way only failed authoritarians can be, not powerful enough to win, but loud enough to disrupt. So we did what good neighbors do. We showed up. Angela organized a neighborhood forum. Not a council, not a committee, just a circle of chairs under the old elm trees near the community garden. Anyone could speak. No agenda, no rules, no power trips. And you know what happened? People started healing. Mr. Harrington, who almost died the day the fire truck came, stood up and thanked the EMTs in person. A single mom admitted she cried in her garage after Karen told her her son's scooter was a rolling hazard. A teenage girl said she felt watched all the time, like even drawing with sidewalk chalk was a political act. I shared my own truth too, about the fear I had not just of Karen, but of being called aggressive if I raised my voice, about how my ex-wife used Karen's letters during a custody review to say our neighborhood was unstable. That part still stung, but as I spoke, heads nodded, hands squeezed mine. It didn't feel like venting. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath too long. We decided to take back more than just the sidewalks. We took back the story. Victor, our lawyer, helped us file to formally dissolve Karen's fake organization. We petitioned to bar her from registering anything in the name of Willow Heights ever again. Then we launched our own monthly newsletter, The Willow Ledger. No compliance sections, just updates, resources, birthdays, jokes. We built a community pantry, run by the same family Karen once called Visual Clutter. We started a neighborhood grant fund for repairs, gardens, and kids projects. And when the local press came asking for a follow-up on the Karen story, we gave them one, From Chaos to Community. How one Texas neighborhood rebuilt after a fake HOA scandal. In the aftermath of a viral fire truck incident that captured national attention, residents of Willow Heights didn't just recover, they rewrote the rules of what neighborhood power could look like. They quoted Angela, they quoted me, they even quoted Miguel, my son, who said it's better now. We don't need a boss, we just help each other. That one line got picked up by NPR. Karen must have heard it too, because that same week her house went up for sale, listed under a private LLC, price slashed twice, description scrubbed clean. She was trying to vanish quietly, but we didn't forget. The day the moving truck came, only one person showed up to watch her leave. Cole, the kid who used to mow lawns on our block, now a high school senior. He stood across the street, arms folded. Karen walked out of the garage carrying a single box. She saw him, rolled her eyes. Still staring, she snapped. He didn't answer, just said, calmly, "Thanks for the fire lane. My grandpa's alive because of it." She froze, said nothing, got in her car, and drove away. Later that night, Cole stopped by my place, dropped off a folder, inside screenshots. Karen had tried to rebrand herself online under a different name as a community ethics consultant, offering Zoom seminars, charging $75 for a 20-minute conflict triage. Some people never learn. But thanks to the folder and a few sharp Reddit sleuths, her side hustle was DOA within the week. I wish I could say that was the end. But stories like this don't end. They echo. And we carry the lessons forward into how we vote, how we speak, how we treat power, even the way we walk our streets. I still get wary when I see someone posting rules in all caps or taping notes to trash cans. But I also see the difference now. We don't flinch anymore, because we remember what it looked like when power tried to grow from nothing but ego. And we remember what it felt like to stand together and say no. We never got a real apology from Karen. No letter. No restitution beyond what the court ordered. No moment of reflection or regret. But I didn't expect one, because people like her don't apologize. They rebrand, they relocate, they rewrite history in places where no one knows what they did the first time around. And honestly, that's fine, because Karen didn't win. She lost not just her SUV or her fake counsel or the lawsuit. She lost something bigger. She lost control. And when that grip finally slipped, our whole neighborhood found something we didn't even know we were missing each other. It's been 6 months since the fire truck flattened her car. 6 months since Mr. Harrington got a second chance at life. 6 months since we stopped letting silence pass for peace. In that time, we've held 3 block parties, launched 2 scholarship funds for local high schoolers, built a rainwater garden in the park where Karen once yelled at a toddler for stepping outside the designated green zone, and written a neighborhood values statement simple, clear, and handwritten by 50 different families. It hangs now on the wall of the clubhouse she once tried to turn into her personal office, right above the coffee maker, where everyone can see it, every day. Funny thing about real leadership, it doesn't require a sash, doesn't need a clipboard, or citations printed in bold red fonts. It just needs presence, consistency, and most of all, it needs accountability, the kind that shows up when things go wrong, not just when a camera's pointed at it. My son Miguel asked me last week why people like Karen act the way they do. Because they're scared. I told him, scared of what? Of losing something they never earned. He thought about that, then said, well, I'm not scared of her anymore. Neither am I. Kid, neither am I. We tell this story now at cookouts, at school assemblies, even in interviews, not because we enjoy the memory of her downfall. We tell it because every neighborhood has a Karen. Sometimes it's a man in a polo shirt with a measuring tape. Sometimes it's a self-declared compliance ambassador. Sometimes it's the one who never picks up after their dog but always files a noise complaint if your kid laughs too loud. They don't always come with flashing lights or real authority, but they carry the weight of imagined control. And if left unchecked, that control can spread like mold behind the drywall. But here's what we learned. You don't have to fight alone. You don't have to yell louder than them. You just have to speak truth. Document what matters, connect the dots, and most of all, stand beside each other, because no one clipboard can stop a street full of voices, and no SUV, no matter how expensive, can block the momentum of real community. Call to action. Has someone in your neighborhood tried to rule with fear instead of trust, tried to silence you with invented titles and meaningless fines? Then take this story as your permission slip. You don't need approval to defend your peace. You don't need credentials to demand accountability. And you sure as hell don't need a sash to say enough. Share your story. Tag your people. And if your block's got a Karen, tell her there's a new kind of parade coming through. It's called the truth, and it doesn't stop for anyone.